Hello, in this video we'll be working with the PayPal REST API. We're going to integrate the smart payment buttons with the web server using Laravel 8. There are a few assumptions that I have going into this. You already have a PayPal business account and developer account, which you'll need to set up the sandbox, and you'll need a client ID and a secret ID to make this work. That part of the documentation, in my opinion, is very straightforward. It's easy to create an account. You can create a business account without any money if you just want to practice. And you'll need that client ID and the secret ID and the sandbox email and everything set up. I'm assuming you have some experience with Laravel. You don't have to be an advanced user, but you will have to know a little bit about model view controller and environment variables, things like that. Nothing too advanced. And I'm assuming you can connect to a database, which you won't have to do, but chances are if you're capturing a payment from a customer, then you'll want to save it to a database somewhere. First part of the video, we'll get everything working without using a database at all. And then in the second part, we'll connect it to a database. Now I'm working on Windows today, and I've got Docker installed, and I also have a Linux terminal installed as well. So when I create this new Laravel project, I'm going to use this command here and put this in my Linux terminal. And the only thing I'm going to do is change the name of the application. So instead of example app, I'm going to call it Laravel API. And this will take a little while, probably take 20, 30 seconds. And depending on your machine, it might take more or less time. And you don't have to use Docker. There's lots of different ways you can create the Laravel applications. You can do this on Windows, Linux, Mac, whatever your preference is. I'm just letting you know what I'm working on today. And as we go through this, you may get an error or two that I don't get. And I can't tell you exactly how to solve that because I don't know your setup, but if you do get an error message, read it and work through it. Sometimes you can learn a lot when you get those error messages, and you check on the internet, you check Stack Overflow, different things, see how people solved it. All right, now we've got a new command here. And that's going to build this project. And so I'm going to have MySQL. It comes as part of this. So you may want to use MySQL. You may want to use something else, Postgres, whatever you want. Or you don't even have to use a database, as I mentioned. One other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to open up VS Code. And we should already have a working project. I've got localhost opened up. It doesn't work yet. But let's see if I refresh this. All right, so we've got Laravel. There's the project. First thing we're going to do is enter some code here. I'm just going to copy it in from what PayPal provides. By looking at resources, views, welcome, that's this page here. Just going to get rid of everything in here. And then if I go into PayPal here, and I'm on the server integration, you can just do client or you can do the server. So I'm going to copy this code here. I'm going to put that inside VS Code. It's not what I wanted to do. Copy there. Save that and see what that looks like. All right, so we have the PayPal buttons first off. And this is gonna be a very simple site. It's not gonna be pretty. The point of this video is just to make things work. And that's what I want to show you. So a couple things that we need to do. First, we need to, if you have a client ID, you're going to have to enter it right here where it says test. You're going to have to put that in there. Now I have mine. I'm going to paste that in here. Just like that. And when I save this, now let's see what happens. Okay, you'll notice Venmo went away. Venmo is not supported in the sandbox, and that is why. Now, in order to communicate with PayPal, we need to bring in a package. And the package that I'm going to use is this srmklive, srmklive /PayPal. And I'm working in Laravel 8, so we need 3. You don't actually have to put the 3. But I'm gonna, so composer require, I'll go ahead and copy that. Let's open up a terminal. As I mentioned, you don't need the 3, so if we stop it right there, actually before I do that, I know I'm gonna get an error unless I do a composer update. This will take just a minute. I'll pause while this updates. Okay, that updated. Now if I enter this and try to install this package, let's see what happens. All right, that worked. One other thing we need to do right here, we need to publish these assets. So I'll copy that. There we go. Config PayPal. Now this should be the only thing that we have to install now. There shouldn't be anything else. Config PayPal. Okay, there it is. Another thing we need to do is go look at the environment variables. And I'm going to paste this in. PayPal, we're going sandbox for now. Later on, if you decide to go live with this, you would change this to live. And I'm going to put my IDs in here. So client ID. For the sandbox. And I'm also going to put the client secret, but I'm going to cut this part out of the video. Back to the website. We shouldn't have to install anything else. And as I mentioned, this is going to be a simple website just so we can get the payment buttons working. First thing I'm going to do is add some products in here. First thing in the body is we'll have some products. I'm going to have some instructions. Select the product, then pay with PayPal. And we'll have 3. I'll use radio buttons. This is just one option, one way to do this. And you'll see as I go through this, this is one way to do this integration. There are many ways you can do it. I'm using these radio buttons. I'll have 3 products. The name will remain the same. That's because we want to use, you can only click one product at a time. That's the way I want to make these work. So if they all have the same name, you have one product selected, when you click the next product, the other one will be deselected. And every time that we click on a product, I want to call a function, and we'll call it handle click, which we'll write in a little while. And the value product 1. And we'll create a label. Actually, I'll make this bigger for now since we're not doing much with the screen. And we're going to have 3 products, so I'll copy this down twice. And on Windows and VS Code, it's Alt-Shift down. All right, product 2. The name stays the same. Values product 2. Label is product 2. Product 2, and we'll charge $2 for the product 2. And then you can guess what we'll do for product 3. All right, let's see how that looks. We've got 3 products. We'll save this. All right. So let me change something here just to make it a little all. All right, it looks a little bit better. All right, we've got 3 products. 1, 2, 3. Next thing we'll do, let's look at this API. Demo checkout. So let's change this. This is going to be API, PayPal, order, create. We'll keep it simple. Method post. And I'm going to send some information here. And this API is called I'm going to send the value. And it's going to be called product value. So as I mentioned, we want to call this handle click. So let's write that right now. It's going to be a simple function. Handle click, radio button. So as soon as you click one of these products, product value equals this value. Let's test that out. We'll do a console log product value. See if that works. Product 1, product 2, product 3. So it's working. As soon as we click a button, we can see it there in the console. But that's not what we ultimately want to do. Another thing, if right now, if you refresh the page, we're going to get an error if you click the PayPal button when there's no product selected. So one other thing that I'll do, go in this public folder, go into create, new folder, CSS, new file, and we'll just call it paypal.css. Put some very minimal styles in here. Let's just do let's increase the font size. And this PayPal button container, initially we're going to show a display of none. So here, all right, let's see this. Oh, I need to link to the style there. All right, let's see if that works. And there we go. And then after you click a product, we want document, get element by ID, should be PayPal button container. Block. So now if we select the product, then we get the PayPal buttons. Yeah, this is one way to handle it. You may want to do something different. Okay, so back to this JSON. I'm just sending the value. And you could send more. You could send the price of the product. You could send a description of the product. But I just want to send the value. And it's this value here, product 1. So the user on the client side, the only thing they do is select a product. So there's no way to get creative and call this API with extra information, picking your own price, things like that. So you simply pick the product you want and we'll handle everything else on the server. So now let's create those API routes. I'm going to create a route group. You don't have to do this, but it is convenient, especially when you have a lot of routes. And we're going to give it a prefix, PayPal. And we'll do 2 posts routes, order/create. Actually, we don't have a controller yet. So before I finish this, let's create a controller. So PHP artisan make controller PayPal controller. And that, if you're not familiar, is going to be up in here, HTTP controller, and there's our PayPal controller. So on this route, we're going to be using the PayPal controller, and we're going to have two methods inside there. We'll have create, and we'll have another one for capture. And let's make sure that we have the controller in here. So use app, HTTP, controllers, PayPal controller. Okay, we have our API route. Now let's look at this controller now. So when that API is called, right here, we need to change this to, this is for the second part. But when it's first called here, we're going to be going to this route, which means there's going to be some code running inside this controller here. And first it'll be the create method. So let's create that one now. In that package that we installed, the srmklive, let's use that. srmklive. We'll need that. Let's create a public function called create. I'm going to take in a request. The first variable is going to be called data using JSON decode. And inside this variable here, data, is going to be the value that we're sending. This value here, product value. We need to initialize PayPal. And we're going to create a provider. And we need to set the API credentials. It's that config file that we looked at earlier. And we'll create this token. And we'll set the access token. Now we need a price for the product. Since all we're sending is that product-1, that's all we're sending initially, how do we get the price? Let's create a model. We could do everything here in the controller, but then you start putting business logic and lots of things in the controller, then it gets hard to read, it gets hard to maintain. So to keep things cleaner, let's create a model. Let's go PHP, artisan make model. we'll call it order. And we'll also do a migration. Not going to do anything with the migration just yet. We're just going to use the order model to put some code in there for now. And there are different ways you can do this. I'll show you one way. In our models, order. I'm going to create first, so I don't forget to do this. I'm going to create this protected fillable. And this is going to be an array that in the first part of the video, we're not going to use this, but when we start working with the database, we will need this. So if you don't have any of the database fields in here, then you won't be able to do what's called mass assignment using the object relational mapping. And I know these are the fields that I'm going to create when I do create the database. So I'm doing this ahead of time. Back to the price. So we need a function in here. We're going to call it get product price. Takes in the value. And I'm going to do a switch statement with that value. And we'll have a few different cases. Product 1, price equals $1. I'm going to copy this down. Product 2, $2. Product 3, $3. Let's do a default. And then we're going to return the price. So now if we go back to the controller and we look at price, price will be order get product price data value. And in order to use order, we need to make sure use app models order. So now to get the product price, we call order get product price with the value. And the value is coming from data that we created here, value. And also product description. How do we know what the product is? We'll call order again, and we'll create a new function inside there called get product description. Also sending data value. So if we go back to order, let's create that. Get product description. We'll do another switch statement. This will be very similar. Matter of fact, I could have just copied everything down. And we'll say case product 1, except this, we're going to be calling description. So let's change all these. I'm using Control D to do this. This will be description. We'll just say $1 product, $2 product, so now we've got the price and the description all set. And as I mentioned, later we're going to work with the database, so I'm just going to say save created order to database. And we'll come back to that. Some of you already know how to do this and you just want to get this thing working. So that's what we'll do. And we need to return a response. Save everything we have. Refresh the page. Let's see. I've got the network open. I use the network in the console for errors. Let's see. Let's pick product 1. And let's click PayPal. See what happens. Okay, we got an error. Unexpected token or order line 32. So let's see what's going on right there. Okay, it looks like I left off a semicolon there. Probably did there too. Okay, let's try this again. Product 1. Okay. Undefined variable order. Controller line 26. So what's going on there? Should have order in there. Oh, left out one of the most important things in here. We didn't create the order. Create order. Tint. Capture. I'm just going to be sending basic information to PayPal. The amount. You can get a lot more advanced than this, but we're going to keep it simple. US dollars. Value. Price. Now I don't want this to get confusing because everywhere we've been using value, we're sending the value here, which is product 1. But this value right here is referring to the actual price. And for the description, this should be all that we need. So let's try this again. Product 1. Add method call. JSON does not exist. All right, oh. All right, it's working so far. The create method is anyway. So $1, you can see that. That's working. I know it's not going to work if I click pay now. It's not going to work because the second method has not even been created. So there's going to be an error. But at least the first one's working. So the next thing is this capture. So the capture method, public function capture. This is going to be very similar to what we've already done. But we also need an order ID. Order ID. So let's work on that. On approve. So create order, that's working. There's nothing else to do there. But the on approve, we've got some work to do here. We've already changed this fetch API. We changed the address here, which is right. Let's make this a little bigger for now. Order ID, data dot order ID. So in this case, we're just sending the order ID. So we'll go back here, data order ID. And there's one more thing we need here, the result. Is the result of the order equals provider capture payment order ID. Then we would update the database, which we won't do just yet, and return response result. Now, if everything is working, refresh. Let's do $2 this time. PayPal. And I'm already logged in with my Sandbox account, is why it pops up. First time you do it, you'll have to log in. $2, so that's working. Now, if I go to Pay Now, okay, we didn't make it all the way. Let's see. So something, let's see what we missed here. 404 not found. Let's look at welcome. API, PayPal. Oh, yeah, I see. We don't need this. That should be right. API, PayPal, order, capture. We don't need that order ID because we're sending it in the body. Let's do $3 this time. PayPal. $3. Pay now. Okay, not working. Undefined order ID. Okay, undefined. In the controller. Order ID. Order ID. Let's see. Was that a capital D? Yes, it was. Let's try this again. Let's do $2. Okay, now. Order ID. Okay, still not working. Order ID. So maybe I had it right. It was. Try this one more time. Now we want to make sure this matches. Order ID right here equals data.order ID. So this is what needs to be inside the controller here. Order ID, just like that. Let's try this one more time. Refresh the page. Let's do product 3. Pay now. All right, there you can see it is working. So see console for all available details. Transaction went all the way through. And you can see the JSON in there. So it's working. And we didn't save any data to the database, but everything is working. So there it is. If you just wanted to see how to get it working. Now I am going to create we did create the migration, but I'm going to add some fields to it. And if you want to stick around for that, please do. Before I go any further, though, I do want to mention this website here. This is a Language Academy, Torogos Language Academy. If you want to learn Spanish, or if you know anybody that wants to learn Spanish, I highly recommend this website. First lesson is free, by the way. So back to the API. All right, so let's save some data to the database. We created a migration, but let's add in some fields. Database, migrations. So when I created the order model, then we've got, let's create string. Let's do, make sure, let's look back at this order model. So I wanted to do price, description, status, reference number. Price. I'm going to copy this down. Description, status, reference number. All right. And before I migrate this next step you may not have to do, but I will have to do this. And that is for the database host. I'm going to comment out this temporarily. And I'm going to say db host equals 127.0.0.1. And again, you may not have to do this. This is for your setup. It may be completely different. So it's hard for me to tell you exactly what you will or want to do. But I'm going to do this. I'm going to migrate this PHP artisan migrate. So that's all of the tables. Some of the tables that came with it already. We didn't create users, password, etc. And now I'm going to comment this out. And now I'm going to connect to a database. I'm going to use MySQL Workbench, graphical user interface for MySQL. You can use PHP MySQL. You could use something completely different. You might not even be using MySQL. But I'm going to connect here. As you can see, so Laravel API, tables, orders. Okay, we don't have any orders right now, but what I'm going to do, so we can see the different stages, let's refresh the page. All right, before I do that, actually, let's go back into the controller. Otherwise, there will be nothing in the database. So we need to save, okay, right here. So using this order model, order create, now this is a way you can write SQL without writing actual SQL code. So this is object relational mapping. So price equals price, description, status, order status, reference number, order ID. And this is in the JSON data that PayPal sends back. ID is the reference number, and then status is going to be, usually it's going to be created and then completed. Those are the two. And this right here, price, description, status, reference number, when you use the ORM, instead of writing SQL or use the database, which I'll do this a different way for this method here for capture. And if we didn't, inside the model, without this protected fillable, you can't do this. You can't use the ORM like that. So that's why I did that. So order create, and then in the second half, for the capture, we're going to do something a little bit different. It'll be similar, but so let's say if result status equals completed, DB table orders where reference number equals result ID, update this is going to be an array, status equals completed, only if it's really completed. So we have that right here, if it equals completed. And we'll change the updated at. And for that, we're going to use carbon. Carbon now. So now when we go through the order, we're actually going to be saving it to the, okay, something's missing here. Yeah, it's not. Okay. Let's make sure we've got everything that we need up here. Use DB, since we're using the DB. And I shouldn't have to say use carbon, we'll see, but we should have this automatically. It's carbon, it's gonna put the timestamp in there. Now the updated at and created at is gonna happen automatically when we use the ORM, but since we're using DB, if you wanna change the updated at field, you're gonna have to, you don't have to use carbon, but that's one way to do it. All right, let's see if everything is working now. So let's look back at this database. So product one, let's do a $3. All right, so PayPal, called PayPal. So this order should be created now. So I'm going to refresh the data here, see if we get anything. So there, as you can see, we do have, this has been created. So ID 1, price is $3. We've got our description in there, $3 product, status is created. So if we go all the way through, pay now. All right, let's see if we, transaction completed. So everything is working. So now if I update this, it completed. So it is working. And then created at is showing 2247. versus, all right, 16 seconds, 51 seconds. So you can see it is actually working. And so before we close out the video, a couple more things I want to look at least on for the client side. And this is what PayPal gives us automatically. Right, create order, pretty straightforward. And then the on approve. So yeah, we're calling the server, our web server in Laravel using this capture and sending the order ID. Then when it comes back, there is some code in here already to handle errors. So if there are errors, if it's not a completed transaction, then there are various ways to handle the error. And you can go beyond this if you want. And you, as you can see, they're using alerts. You don't have to use alerts. Of course, you might want to just change something on the screen. You can show an alert if you want to. It's whatever you want to do. It's probably not the best user experience if you have alerts popping up for everything. You might want to change some, so they even give some suggested code here. And so we've got replace the above. All right, so instead of an alert, let's comment that out. And let's uncomment this just to show you the difference. And this is probably not going to be pretty, but it'll just show you something different. So this PayPal button container, meaning these buttons here, that's going to change and it's going to show thank you for your payment. Now it's probably, I might do something similar if it were me, probably. And in fact, in the project that I created, of course, I made it look a lot better than this, but I did do something very similar. So let's save that now, and let's see what happens here. Let's do, let's pick product 2 this time. PayPal. You can see $2. Pay now. And there, thank you for your payment. So no more alert message, just you would want to make that look better, obviously. Or you wouldn't have to, it depends on what kind of site you have. But chances are you'd want to make it look better than that. And as I mentioned, this is just really the beginning of what you can do with PayPal and what you can do on your server. You know, I created one database table, but if you have users logged in, you want to make sure you're using foreign keys and you want to make sure you're updating the table with the right user and things like that. If there's a lot of interest, then I can go above and beyond this here. Just wanted to show everyone that it's not too difficult to get this working with PayPal. It's a little bit frustrating based on the documentation that they give you, but using that package that we installed, it's really not that difficult, at least to do the basics of accepting a payment. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.